the first thing I have up there is don't make it too complicated, all right? I have several buddies back home at Rayburn that call me all the time, and they're like, man, my LiveScope looks terrible. Yeah, you pushed too many buttons. Like, go back in there, restore the sonar defaults, and it's just about ready. Like, literally. I mean, I restore my sonar defaults all the time. I don't have to change much. I go in there, I restore my sonar defaults because it, in my opinion, it resets the black box, which is the brain of the system. And then each fishery is a little different. Each day is a little different. Okay, or we might be fishing a lake in Florida, and all of a sudden we get a big south wind, and it turns the whole lake over, and you get a bunch of sediment in the water, and all of a sudden I need to reset my unit because now the water's cloudy, it's muddy, and I don't need my gain up as high because everything's blowing up on there. Okay, here's a good perspective mode image, and we'll talk about that. But you're the man. You good at this. You done it so far? I haven't. This is my first one, by the way. But no, so changing that stuff, you know, like I said, don't make it too complicated. Restore your sonar defaults. If you don't like what you see, go in there, take everything out of auto, put your noise reductor on high, turn your gain up or down until it looks good to you. That's all you gotta do. Keep it real simple, okay? This is a perspective mode image, all right? So this is shining that flashlight across the bottom like that, and wherever you turn that transducer, it's in that pie shape like that. It's gonna pan around with it. This is a couple of house foundations. I know that just because I've seen a bunch of them before. You know, all the lakes here in Texas except for Caddo, I think, are all man-made reservoirs, and there were communities under most of them. And so you'll find these house foundations like this, which are very good places to find bass at times. And we'll talk about that more in my spawning seminar here later this afternoon. But this is a perspective mode image, all right? And the further you run that image out, the wider that cone's gonna be, the more surface area you're gonna be able to see, the less detail you'll be able to see. There are times whenever I run that perspective mode only out to 30 feet. There are times when I run it out to 120 feet, 130 feet. Maybe I'm in open water. You would not believe how much you can see with this transducer in perspective mode in open water. Looking at schools of bait fish that might be over 80 foot of water. You can still see that. It's amazing. It's really, really cool. But there's a lot of different applications for it. This is definitely one of them. This is probably, I would look for stuff like this in the pre-spawn or post-spawn. This is going to be a staging area for fish moving in and out of spawning areas. They may even spawn around this stuff. For years we thought it was only just a staging area, but you'd be surprised how many bass spawn in 10 foot of water around places like this that you can see now with that LiveScope. And that's just something else that we've learned with the technology. And we'll touch more on that here in the next seminar. So I just wanted to throw this in here. You don't know what you don't see, okay? And I know that's kind of confusing. I tried to explain that to him earlier and I was kind of struggling. But here's an example, right? So you're pretty familiar with your LiveScope. You can probably see your bait splash, okay? If you've never seen that, you don't know that you're supposed to see it, right? But I will say this, if you don't see a topwater coming across the top of the water, you're not seeing everything you need to see, because you will be surprised at how many bass will sit in that upper foot of the water column, especially during the spawn. Those big females will get up there and they'll just just sit. You ever been just driving across a cove and you look, you're like, man, there's a 7-pounder just sitting up there on the surface, you know? Well, that's what she's doing. She's up there, she's just spawning. You need to be able to see that kind of stuff. You need to be able to see that bait whenever it gets up on the surface. You know, how many times in the fall, especially, like you look out there across a cove and you see the little pods of bait everywhere on the surface. And there'll a lot of times be bass right underneath those. You need to be able to see that. So, you don't know what you don't see. There's been times wherever I might have hopped in the boat with one of my buddies and I'm like, man, I never saw that on mine. And then you know, I kind of picked up on it and I learned from that. So just play around with a couple different things, different settings. The way you have your transducer mounted, just maybe you angle it up one more click or you angle it down one more click. You know, all those things can make a big difference. So it's different for every boat. I can't tell you exactly how to put your transducer on your boat because we got different boats. You have a different trolling motor, okay? I weigh 130 pounds, okay? Whenever I stand in front of my boat, but a normal sized guy, whenever he stands on the boat, it probably sinks down a little bit more. So that changes the angle of his transducer and his trolling motor in the water. There's a lot of variables that go into this stuff. It doesn't have to be that detailed. I'm just trying to tell you, if you're trying to get the most out of your unit, you have to understand that there are a lot of variables that go into all of this, and you don't know what you don't see. Okay, top water is an example. Changing the transducer placement can kind of adjust what you can and can't see at times. So just keep that in mind whenever you're doing this. So first of all, any more questions before we go to the next one? Yes, sir.
Just want to clarify something. Just by changing the transducer angle, to be able to see a top water come across.
You
Are there any settings that go with that as well?
Like I said, I usually just, based off the default settings, I go in there all the time. Restore sonar defaults, take my noise reject on high, turn my gain up or down a little bit depending on the water clarity, sediment in the water, and I take everything off of auto. So that's, I'm glad you asked that because that brought me to that. So if I'm in 10 foot of water, I'm gonna at least double my depth.